How many points are you going to make?
I'm being entirely no. It's this
you
is one
you made
point.
a point about my
This is
lordship,
one point.
and you denied my identity.
I
am
didn't
a
even
lord.
finish.
I own a small plot of land in Scotland. It affects me legally.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
affects
You got
me socially,
scammed by a
and
scam company.
No,
That's
no,
not,
I
you're
own
not
a
a lord.
small plot of land.
And secondly,
this is
no
my,
one
let's
is
give the
harmed.
benefit of the doubt.
Allow me to finish.
Hold on 1 second.
Are you
there.
saying that my
1 second there, Jake? Yeah.
It absolutely is the same thing. Telling someone they got scammed, that could be devastating. His sound just went out, I guess, during this opening.
Recognition through Fox, and then parlayed that exposure into massive internet medical association. This also includes the American Academy of Pediatrics. This also includes the WPATH standards of care in the latest version, version 8. These are not fringe. This is the scientific and medical mainstream. There are many other reasons, such as providing human dignity and autonomy, social integration and stability, and overall harm reduction. But I want to address what those that oppose my argument might say. But wait, aren't all of these just leftist shills that have been bought out by leftist ideology? Sadly, the issue is quite the opposite of what you suggest. Rupert Murdoch, owner of Fox News, has built a media empire that thrives not on truth, but on sensationalism and misinformation. Internal Fox documents and court cases, such as the Dominion voting scandal settling over $700 million with Rupert Murdoch himself saying that he spread misinformation on the voting system for ratings, prove that Murdoch and his top hosts knowingly spread false narratives, not because they are true, but because the outrage drives ratings. And with higher ratings comes more ad revenue. It's a business model. Controversy equals profit. This dynamic doesn't just affect TV viewers. Fox News acts as a launching pad. Personalities like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Glenn Beck, Tomi Lahren, Candace Owens gained national recognition through Fox and then parlayed that exposure into massive internet followings. Figures like
did they get that through Fox? I don't think Candace Owens got it through Fox. This 1stAmender knows that Fox News isn't like our main source of information, right? Like these lefties think that we just watch Fox News all day.
like Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Brandon Tatum, Dave Rubin, Matt Walsh, and the Libs of TikTok account have all benefited from Fox's amplification, becoming influencers in vast right-wing media ecosystems. What's dangerous is that this machine replaces verified science and empirical data with a culture war talking points. Instead of engaging with the overwhelming medical and psychological consensus on issues like a trans identity, the audience is fed narratives designed to provoke emotion, reactions, and loyalty to an ideology, regardless of truth. So no, it is not the mainstream that is misleading people. You're being sold a worldview engineered for clicks and political influence. I'm asking you to step back and consider the peer-reviewed research, the medical institutions, the lived experiences, not the nightly outrage cycle that keeps Murdoch's empire profitable. In conclusion, we ought, by mainstream medical science and not right-wing media punditry, be accepting of trans individuals, because that is what the evidence shows, not for clicks, but for facts and reason. Thank you.
So the reason I thought that was so funny is look at like the NPC way he talks. Like look at it. Yes, it is all Fox News. It is Rupert Murdoch and them brainwashing you. I ask you to please reconsider and not listen to them. Read, like I'm not even doing it justice because I'm blinking. He doesn't even blink. Like, look at this.
The lived experiences, not the nightly outrage cycle that keeps Murdoch's empire profitable. In conclusion, we ought, by mainstream medical science and not right-wing media punditry, be accepting of trans individuals, because that is what the evidence shows, not for clicks, but for facts and reason. Thank you.
Like, like he really thought, like, oh yeah, this is gonna change minds. He just said the mainstream right influence people, then said the mainstream doesn't. And exactly, that's the thing. Mainstream means everybody like listens to this. We're right wing. It's like like Fox News is only one channel on the cable system. And even like if you want to go into the right wing ecosystem, like Daily Wire and all these other right wing news outlets or what have you, they're like they're not even mainstream like at all. They're mainstream for right wing content, but they're not mainstream in general. do you see people? Do you see celebrity actors coming out on at award shows and saying, "Hey, watch the Daily Wire," or "Hey, we need to keep men out of women's bathrooms"? Like, no, you don't see that. Do you see TV shows, mainstream TV shows pushing this propaganda? Dude, the last 10 years or so, one of the reasons entertainment has gone downhill is because of all the left-wing propaganda that they pushed. And he's trying to tell us that we're brainwashed? Yeah, no, dude. No, we are not the ones that are brainwashed. And we are not the ones coming out here saying, First Amender, I urge you to please reconsider and listen to Fox News and read the data, please. Like, no, that is you, dude. You literally came out like a freaking NPC there. You were literally like an NPC. So yeah, the lack of self-awareness is amazing. So let's skip ahead a little bit and let's dive right into this.
Of a feminine man or a masculine woman, and if that's something we can envision, then we know what trans people are. But this would be like saying my cat plays fetch, so I have a dog-like cat, so my cat is a dog. Just because a person can be a feminine man or a masculine woman, feminine and masculine, those are the socially constructed parts, not the man and the woman. The roles can surely be subverted if they exist. Though again, that does not mean one changes their biological essence or societal definition. And I'm using gender as a synonym for sex. It's always been that way up until about 2 seconds ago. So that's how
I don't know if
this is still. If self-identification is all it takes to become a trans woman or a
here, I'm going to fast forward.
A doctorate degree, and someone
now, believe it or not, this Amy person right here, not clearly, he's trans. He's a trans woman, but he's actually more reasonable than 1stAmender. So this is an actual trans person, and he's actually more reasonable than 1stAmender. Believe it or not. Like I'd rather much have a conversation with Amy than I would have 1stAmender. So hold on, I'm just trying to skip all the intros here. Man, did this intro segment really go for over an hour? Like, holy cow. Wait, or is that when 1stAmender showed his brain scans? 1stAmender always relies on his like studies and his brain scans because he thinks it adds like legitimacy. Like, he doesn't understand. Well, I'll let it play and then I'll get into it.
Do you just say, you know what? I'm either going to accept it or not. I mean, if I do think you're joking, but let's just take the example and say, what if
this
you
is the
weren't
Lord?
Joking? Like, what if it really did make your life better and you functioned calling you my Lord? I'll be honest, I would actually
hold on. Okay, let me try to rewind back here because this is where he gets into the Lord stuff, which is always funny because 1stAmender, like he hates it.
Out of people's feelings. There was a
It's Jake and 1stAmender, they get along maybe better than we thought, and yeah, he knows his cat. Yep. I don't know. I'm just picking. All right, 1stAmender.
He lost his cat, and I helped him.
That's very kind of you. All right, let's hand it over to 1stAmender first to respond to some of the things that you just heard.
That's really weird. I mean, Jake the Rattlesnake lying about my cat apparently being dead, but yet my cat seems to be moving around just fine.
We found it.
Very terrible look. Also, you are not a lord. You got scammed by a scam company. The difference is between trans people are not asking to be treated like nobility. They're asking to be recognized for who they are. So they do not die by suicide. They get denied health care or be dehumanized. You're not oppressed because people do not call you Lord, but trans people are hurt when you refuse their identity.
It is
Nobody is harmed if I do not call you Lord. But we have decades of evidence showing. If you could just please allow me to finish.
I need to respond to the points that you're making.
I'm giving you my position here. No one is harmed.
How many points are you going to make?
I'm being entirely. No. It's this is one point.
You made a point about my lordship, and you denied my identity.
I didn't even finish.
I own a small plot of land in Scotland. It affects me legally.
Yeah. You got scammed by a scam company.
No. I own a small plot of land.
And secondly, no one is harmed. Allow me to finish.
Hold on 1 second.
Are you saying that my
1 second there, Jake? Yeah, we'll give him a chance to wrap up there, but let's just assume that Jake, everything's in good order. What he's telling you is, but let's let 1stAmender make the rest of his case there. I can't
Nobody
tell
is-
though, Jake, because I don't know if you're.
Nobody is
too
harmed if I do not call you Lord, but we have decades of evidence showing real harm when we do not affirm trans people's identities. That's the difference. This isn't a joke for them. It's life or death. Your argument doesn't challenge anything. It's just making fun. You're comparing someone's deeply felt gender identity to a gag title, and that says more about your seriousness than it does about their.
All right.
You calling yourself a Lord
Let's
is
wrap.
performative. Trans people living authentically isn't. And if you think that they are the same, you're not arguing in good faith. You're just looking for applause lines.
All right, let's hand it over.
Well, by definition, that doesn't make any sense. Trans people living authentically, that's contradicting. That doesn't make any sense. That's the whole issue. Trans people aren't living authentically. They're living as the opposite gender. So that it's a contradiction. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. They're not living authentically. And by the way, if I were Jake Rattlesnake, what I would have done is I would have been like, if he would have brought up the whole, like right here, how he said, oh, that's a scam. You got scammed by a company. You're not a Lord. I would have been like, wait, what? I got scammed? What are you talking about? I got scammed. Well, this is news to me. You mean I paid my money to be called a Lord and to own a plot of land, but I'm actually not a Lord and I don't own a plot of land and I got scammed? And he would have been like, that's right. I would have acted kind of devastated. Like, well, that sucks because I really thought that I owned a plot of land in Scotland. I thought I was a Lord. And you're telling me this. That really devastates me. I feel like I'm going into a depression now because you've just kind of pulled the rug out from under me. You've totally destroyed my worldview and my identity here. So wait, all these other people got scammed too? And he would have been like, yes. And I'm like, holy cow. And you know what I mean? And then like, you like really like guilting him. And I would have been like, I would have put on the whole act and just like, well, I'm going to go over here and think about this real quick, guys. Like, this is devastating to me. I thought I owned a plot of land. I thought I was a Lord. And then like, I would have made it a whole thing. And if I would have had the chance to tell like my partner, like if I ever debate 1stAmender again, or if Jake ever debates 1stAmender again on this, I would have Jake tell his partner, if he has a partner, to go along with it and be like, 1stAmender, why don't you just affirm his nobility? Why don't you just affirm that he's a Lord? Don't you see how devastating it was that you told him he's not a Lord, that you told him he was scammed? Because legitimately, if you tell someone they've been lied to and they're scammed, that could be devastating for a person. So even so, that could lead to depression. Like imagine like you really think you own a plot of land somewhere and then it turns out it was a scam. That could be completely devastating. And so how is that different then from telling a trans person, hey, I'm going to call you he, him, and not she, her? Under 1stAmender's thing, that's the same thing, because that could be devastating. And you know what? If he doesn't want to cause Jake Rattlesnake any kind of devastation, any kind of depression, because he thought he owned land, but he didn't, well, Jake, 1stAmender, by his logic, he should be affirming Jake and telling him, no, actually, sorry, yeah, you didn't get scammed. You totally own a plot of land. You're totally a Lord. By his own logic. But 1stAmender, it's all a joke to him. He's the arbiter of who's trans and who's not. 1stAmender just says it's not. That's the best he could do, is like, well, it's not the same thing. It absolutely is the same thing. Telling someone they got scammed, that could be devastating. Like, hey, that person you were sending money to that you thought was Brad Pitt, that you send thousands of dollars to, that wasn't Brad Pitt. You're not in a relationship with Brad Pitt. You know, that could be devastating.
Over to the other side. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, so I mean, this is deeply offensive. I am a Lord. This is deeply rooted in my own identity. And I don't
Good to
know
see
why
you, Sola
1stAmender
Scriptura.
is refusing to call me a Lord. I want him to refer to me as my Lord. And if he does that, then I will be less depressed, okay? Because there's always the chance that this is something that's so important to me. If 1stAmender, if I said to you that I was going to hold a gun to my head and pull the trigger if you don't call me my Lord every time you refer to me, would you do it?
I'm not going to respond to ridiculous straw mans. I would like you to actually be a serious.
See, that's the best he could do. Like, this is a ridiculous straw man. No, it's not. It's not ridiculous. If you tell someone they've been scammed, that could be devastating to them. People can take their lives, and I'm pretty sure have taken their lives because they got scammed by somebody. That could be devastating to them. Like I said with the Brad Pitt example, like you wouldn't keep telling this person, yeah, listen, you're totally dating Brad Pitt. Keep sending them money. No, that's harmful to them. But First Amender, he thinks that his best excuse is just, well, no, that's a silly straw man. Says who? Says him.
This individual. I want to go ahead and address Taylor's argument, however, because at least there was some level of cogency. No, because it's just a ridiculous straw man. It's not an actual. It's not an actual argument. It's not an argument.
Well,
Yeah,
there is no argument.
Let's
I've
pull it along.
explained why there is no argument.
I
You
agree.
can't
I agree. We're
seem
going to
to
pull it
address it.
along. We're going to pull it along
I'll
with
be
some
the judge
outside
of whether
voices.
my argument is an argument.
Well, we're going to pull it. Yeah, let's pull it along with some outside voices. Amy and Taylor, I want to get you in here on the idea of what Jake's putting down with the title and stuff like that. So go ahead there, Amy.
And I think I'll address it, is that when we are dealing with gender, we tend to be dealing with masculine or feminine. We really are looking at something and saying, is this a boy toy or a girl toy? Things like that. What I would give as an analogy to my lord is someone who is a doctor and has a doctorate degree, and someone doesn't want to call them doctor. And you have to ask yourself, at what point do you just say, you know what? I'm either going to accept it or not. I mean, if I do think you're joking, but let's just take the example and say, what if you weren't joking? Like, what if it really did make your life better and you functioned calling you my lord? I'll be honest, I would actually be leaning in the direction of calling you my lord if I truly did believe that. Now, I don't think that's the same as a gender. I do truly think that a gender is dealing with two prongs, but it would be like someone saying, look, if you don't call me a doctor and I have a doctorate degree, I could show you, I could prove to you, we can go through the medical records, all the courses, and it's kind of mean and rude that you don't address me as doctor. I feel like it's a good analogy.
Thank you. I actually appreciate that. At least somebody here is arguing in good faith and has a consistent standpoint. So you will refer to me as my lord.
I think you're joking, but if it truly did make you feel better, I do. I would rather, if I was part of your community, if I was your friend, your family, I really would. I want to go the extra
And
length.
throughout the course of this debate, you will refer to me as such.
How about this? Can you look me and promise me? Do you really believe? Does it really, would it make you, it really does improve your mental health? It makes you less suicidal?
Yes.
I mean, by all means, my lord.
Okay, fantastic. First Amender, I would like you to do the same thing. Thank you. At least First Amender, this will make you.
I want to
logically
address
consistent.
I don't know, honestly, if
See, like at least Amy is like consistent. At least he's like, okay, well, fair enough. Yeah, I'll call you my lord if that's something that really affects you. At least he's consistent, you know. I've seen Amy in other debates before, and he's pretty reasonable overall. Again, still don't agree that he's a woman or anything like that, but he's at least reasonable. And again, more reasonable than First Amender here.
if this actually works in your favor the way you want it to, Jake. I think you might be arguing yes, maybe. I don't know. I'm confused. Go ahead, Taylor.
Okay. Like just a few things. I feel like what Amy was kind of putting out there with like, does it like they're seemingly good intentions, like saying like, oh, among family and friends, like I do agree that maybe there's like certain social like situations where we just kind of give in to certain things because maybe it just is the polite thing to do. But when we're implying that something is polite, we're also implying that it's untrue. Like if someone asked me if they looked fat and they did, and I didn't want to be rude, I would just say no. So like number one, the analogy of a doctor, like you're saying, oh, they really are a doctor, call me doctor, but the analogy doesn't work because what if they really weren't a doctor? What if they were just running around a hospital pretending to be a doctor?
No, exactly.
Would we still validate them? And if fine, but is that the right thing to do? They're running around the hospital.
So Taylor, I actually believe that I feel like that you're probably I think that you're probably likely acting in much better faith here, and so I think I will address you.
Also, First Amender, whenever there's an argument he doesn't like, he just calls it bad faith.
And I will provide this information for everybody to be able to observe. I have here a paper that I wanted to share. I think it's important.
Let's see. More with his papers.
So what I am sharing here, and give me a second while I update it on my
screen
end.
share.
Yeah, it's another screen share,
right,
unfortunately.
No one cares
I'm
about
so
your brain
sorry.
waves.
Give me a moment.
I would ask that if you do.
Yeah, no, Jake's right though. I even told this to First Amender in our debate. I was like, dude, no one cares about the thing is all his studies get tossed out because all it comes down to with First Amender is the feelings thing. And Jake points that out to him.
Screen share. Well, yeah, you did give me a heads up. Just give me a heads up firstly so that I can switch the screens, and also
I apologize.
and also leave it up so when people are responding, if they want to engage with like specific things, because sometimes people like they blast through a screen share, they pull it down, and people are like, wait, bring that back.
Yeah.
In. So.
Okay. So you can actually look this up. It's called the Neuroanatomy of the Transgender Identity, Mega Analytic Findings from the Enigma Transgender Persons Working Group. This is freely available. You can observe this. I have the full paper, but you will likely be behind a paywall. But anyway. So basically, what happened is using a mega analytic approach, structural MRI data of 803 non-hormonally treated transgender men and transgender women, cisgendered men, and cisgender women were analyzed. Structural brain measures, including gray matter volume, cortical surface area, and cortical thickness. The result was that transgender persons differed significantly from cisgendered persons with respect to their subcortical brain volumes and surface area, but not cortical thickness. Contrasting the four groups of trans male, trans woman, cis male, and cis woman, we observed a variety of patterns that not only depended on the direction of gender identity, as in towards male or towards female, but also on the brain measure as well as the brain region examined. The conclusion that they have observed is that rather than being merely shifted towards either end of the male-female spectrum, transgender persons seem to exhibit their own unique brain phenotype. What I find particularly interesting about this paper is that it is not a sociological paper, but a neurobiological one. Specifically, what it is measuring is very specific regions in the brain and can exhibit trans individuals possessing their own unique brain phenotypes. As a result, being trans in and of itself is not social. In fact, it is very often that it has a biological imperative. It is literally wired to you when you are a baby. This is something that happens endocrinologically as the fetus is developing. And so this shows an actual basis, and this is the actual scientific understanding. Thank you.
I do apologize. I just got the.
That's a good point, Godspeed.
Yeah, let's have a chance to respond. Did you want him to bring up that paper again there, Taylor, so you could?
No, I got it.
Okay.
I actually had a whole chunk on brain thing. I just skipped over it. Like, I'll just say really quickly, I studied this, and first of all, brain studies are very, again, hard to replicate. Number two, the brain is constantly changing. The brain is plastic, so things like cortical thickness, that changes all the time. That is often the brain area that's cited, as well as the amygdala. But the amygdala and cortisol, or that what you just cited, is often affected by experience. We also see it change in those who suffer PTSD. The cortical thickness is affected by age, exercise, environment. So no, it's not when you're a baby. No one's brain is like showing anything when you're a baby. Your brain is very often shaped by your experiences. Like I cited in the other paper, a lot of people that have gone through trans hormonal therapies, they have adverse childhood experiences that can change your brain significantly. They've also found that gay men's brains, because the amygdala can be affected by sexual activity, just all sorts of experiences. Environmental, you're talking about environmental still, so it's not all biological. Gay men's brains, they resemble women's often more than men's. Gay men aren't women. So the brain is very tricky. It's plastic. It's constantly changing. I don't think that's a good basis for your argument. Also, I don't think it includes all trans people. I think that you're going to leave out a lot of trans people if that's your basis for defining a trans man or woman is the brain.
Right. Amy was making some faces there. Did you want to respond to that one right quick?
Well, I would actually just want to talk to her larger point that she was bringing up about it being untrue, because I think that comes to whether it is an objective thing, something that is either male, female, or what I would say is more neurology, is more feelings and brain states. And it would be, in my opinion, like saying that your favorite color isn't true, because to me, it is either your gender is feminine or masculine, and it is again, how you feel. And to say, well, you don't feel that way, which I think you're saying it doesn't correspond with biology. But I would say that we aren't talking about biology. We're talking either a social phenomena or largely, if we took it out, it would be neurological.
So Amy completely contradicts 1stAmender's argument that it's biological. Amy, who is trans, so I don't know why 1stAmender keeps trying to assist-splain to him that it's biological when he is straight up saying, well, no, it's just about how you feel. It's about how you feel. And no one is saying that you don't feel that way. I'm sure you feel like dressing like a woman and living your life as a woman. No one's doubting that you feel that way. But we're arguing, should we treat you like one or not? And by treating you one, it is not just affirming your identity. It is not just pronouns. If it was just pronouns, you might have been able to get away with that. At least 10 years ago or so. I don't know about now. But 10 years ago, you would have been able to get away with that and reason with people over that. However, you took it way past just calling someone a girl name or she, her. Now it's like, well, they have to use the bathrooms. Men have to use women's bathrooms as long as they say they're a woman. Men now have to play in women's sports if they feel like a woman. Men have to now be in women's locker rooms and just women's spaces in general. Men now have to be in women's prisons. Men now have to get trans care if they're in the army, and we have to let trans people in the army. It's like you guys have turned everything topsy-turvy to where now we have to debate what a woman is now. Now we have to debate what a woman is.
Social.
All
right. Over to you, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about 1stAmender's gay brain studies, if I'm totally honest, because I think that it comes down to one thing. 1stAmender, if somebody did have this gay trans brain or whatever it is, and they're a man and they've got this allegedly trans brain, but they think they're a man, are they a man or are they a woman?
If you're referring to sex or gender, I would have to ask them if we're referring to gender. If we are referring to sex, it's typically whether or not they have large or small gametes.
Okay, so they have got the transest brain in the whole world. Their brain is just all of the indicators that they have the trans brain, but they think they're a man. Are they a man or are they a woman?
If they believe internally that they are a man, then they would be a man.
Okay, so there you go. Your whole entire study does not matter. Can we not get any more of those stupid screen shares anymore, 1stAmender, because it's completely redundant. You just destroyed it.
I was in for roughly 98% of trans people possessed.
No, exactly. That was my whole thing with 1stAmender too. I'm like, dude, you could bring up all these studies, all that you want, but at the end of the day, you admit it's just a feeling. And also, too, another thing is, unless we start asking people for their brain scans before they use the restroom, which obviously we're not going to do, then it doesn't matter, because 1stAmender thinks that as long as you just say you're a woman, you should be able to use the women's restroom. Like, you should just be able to use whatever restroom you feel like using. So it doesn't matter. You could have someone that actually has the trans brain using the bathroom, or you could have some creep like Lily Tino going into the women's restroom, taking pictures in the women's restroom, and all that is perfectly fine and acceptable to 1stAmender. And if you don't believe me, you could check my ex, where I tweeted him Lily Tino taking a picture in the women's bathroom, and he was like, "You're just making a mountain out of a molehill. Just let people use the restroom." So a man pretending to be a woman going into the women's restroom and taking pictures in the restroom, that's okay with 1stAmender as long as Lily Tino's dressed like a woman, right? Which 1stAmender told me that's Looney Tunes stuff. That's Looney Tunes. No man's going to do that. And then I pointed him example. Well, look, Lily Tino example taking pictures in women's restrooms. Again, if I just went into the women's restroom and I was taking pictures in there, I'm sure any reasonable person, I'm sure even 1stAmender himself would be like, yeah, get him out of there. Get him out of there, that creep. Oh, but if I wear a dress, well, now, I was trying to tell him this. I was like, oh, but if I wear a dress, then 1stAmender and all these other retards could just be like, oh, well, just let him use the restroom. Look, he's wearing a dress. He says he's a woman. Just let him use the women's restroom. Doesn't matter if he's in there taking pictures in the women's restroom. Just let him use the restroom. you're making a mountain out of a molehill, which is what I was trying to tell him. That's pretty much you're enabling these people to do that stuff. You're letting people into women's spaces. Anyway, what the hell was my original point though? Rewind a little bit. Oh yes. So 1stAmender, save your studies and such, because at the end of the day, you're fine with anybody using the women's restroom just as long as they say they're a woman or they're dressed like a woman. He kept telling me that's Looney Tunes, as if I was freaking telling him, oh yeah, trans women are going to start painting highway tunnels into the mountains so cars could drive into it, or trans women are going to start putting anvils on the top of women's restrooms so they could hit them with it. That would be Looney Tunes stuff. But this is actually something that happens.
Possess these morphological differences in the brain. And I would also agree that the cortical thickness can change. That much is true. However, you are not accounting for additional portions of the brain, and it also doesn't address the bed nucleus of the stria terminalis portion, which is the brain region involved in the gender identity, has been shown to align more closely with the gender identity than the biological sex. This was found in Zua et al. 1995 in Nature.
Yeah, literally doesn't matter though, 1stAmender, because it all comes down to what they think and what they feel. So it is
you have to ask
social.
them what it is.
Yeah, so it comes down to what they think. It doesn't matter about if they have this gay
you
trans
have to
brain.
ask them
all it
what
matters
it
is about what they think. So it does not matter.
You
Your
can't
study is
confirm
completely
how it is
irrelevant,
they
my friend.
feel internally. Do you understand what like qualia is?
Oh
This
yeah,
is a
qualia. Qualia is his new favorite word. He uses that a bunch in here. He also thinks that using these words that people don't usually use often is going to make them sound smarter, and therefore
basic concept of qualia. If we have to understand what somebody is experiencing during qualia, then you would have to ask them.
Wait,
For
1stAmender,
example, if you went up to somebody and you say, does it hurt? And then they say, no, it doesn't hurt, but you see a giant gaping wound, right? You have to take them for their word that it probably doesn't hurt. And they're going through some internal experience that would be vindicative of that.
Yeah, so you would argue then that actually it does hurt, or they are going through this experience, even if they say it doesn't hurt, but they are going through that experience, right?
No, I wouldn't. I would apply what their internal phenomenology is. That's how it works.
Can
Let's let
internal
Taylor-
So if they say that
let's
they
let
are a
Taylor-
man, then
hold
they're a
on.
man, and their internal phenomenology says that they're a man. So it doesn't even matter about it doesn't matter about anything that you just said.
All right.
Like
It does because people who self-report themselves 98.
Hold on. I just sorry I put you on mute there, 1stAmender.
yeah, but it's all about, oh, how do you know unless they report it? How do you know unless you tell them? Okay, yeah, here's the difference though. If I let's say I go to a drugstore and I say, hey, I need painkillers, right? But I actually don't really need the painkillers. But I tell them, yeah, but listen, I'm in pain. But I'm really just addicted to painkillers. Let's say I'm just addicted, or maybe I'm not even addicted, but I have people that want to buy the painkillers for me because they're addicted. So I'm the one that could go in there and be like, yeah, hey, by the way, listen, I feel like I'm in pain or whatever. Like, you have to go through a lot of hoops, and you have to show a prescription and all these things before you could get painkillers. And usually you have to wait. You can't just get painkillers, sell them all, then the next day go and ask for more. Usually you need to get a doctor's approval on all these things. Okay, but what you're asking for, 1stAmender, is you're asking for, no, you should just believe them and give them the painkillers pretty much. Now, 1stAmender does say, well, I think they should go to a psychologist or something like that and get it looked at if they're feeling trans. However, what if they don't? What if they don't go to a psychologist and they still keep wanting to just go to the restroom or whatever? They keep living their life as a woman and they're going to the restroom and they're just saying they're not even really trans. Like, what if they don't go see a psychologist because they're not even really, they don't have the trans brain? Again, they're just men. The Looney Tunes stuff 1stAmender keeps telling me that just want to get into women's spaces. 1stAmender wouldn't say anything like, hey, sir, have you been to a psychologist yet? No, he would be like, just let them use the restroom. You're making mountains out of molehills. So again, all of 1stAmender's arguments fall down to the ground because he contradicts himself. All it is just, do you feel like a woman? Yes. Okay, then you're a woman. That's it. That's all it is to 1stAmender.
But Taylor's been trying to jump in, and it's only fair. I'm going to ask Jake just to make some space here for your partner as well. Go ahead there, Taylor.
Just the simplest question. First Amender, can internal perceptions be wrong? Yes or no?
Sure.
Okay, so then again, your argument falls apart. If everything is based on internal perceptions and you agree that internal perceptions can be wrong, then that's it. They can be wrong.
I think what's really important, if
basis.
somebody is possessing an internal sense of being the opposite gender, what I would suggest is follow WPATH standards. And typically speaking, if you're going to show up and you need medical care because of gender dysphoria, you feel like that you're a man trapped in a woman's body or whatever, then you talk to a psychologist, you talk to your endocrinologist, you actually get informed consent as to what are the results of these things. This is the standard procedure.
And again, so what if someone does go to a psychologist and their endocrinologist and all these things, and they all tell them you're not actually trans, or my diagnosis is you're not actually trans, but then they still continue living their life as a woman? Well, what then, First Amender? Are you going to take that doctor's word? Are you going to trust the science there? Or are you going to be like, obviously that doctor probably got it wrong? Again, none of these arguments matter. It doesn't matter. None of our First Amender's arguments matter at all.
So because of the study I brought up earlier, in the UK, they no longer let children under 18 take hormone or puberty blockers. That's recent. So clearly these standards can change. Do you feel like because of the lack of long-term studies, because of the fact that we don't know what these medications are doing to children, which is an implication of like validating this whole thing, that we should be very prudent in the way that we understand this, and we should be very clear and have very clear standards when we mean what we say? We should have agreed upon definitions if we're going to make, children take puberty blockers.
Hormone blockers and puberty blockers in terms of throughout the world have been operated and used on children for decades. There are numerous sex disorders and hormone disorders that allow somebody to get gender affirming care. This is not new. This has been something that's been around since the 70s. It's only roughly until 2015 that these things started coming into vogue and wanting to protest against it. In terms of UK papers as well as the Sweden papers, fair enough. There's always developments that can be done in the scientific community, in which case that is a discussion that ought to happen between the endocrinologists. But I'm just going to let you know the amount of papers that exist on my side is like this giant mountain of evidence in comparison to maybe I think there's 3 or 6 papers that are on the other side in the European journals and studies. I'm not wrong about this.
There's lots of, there may be lots of papers, but you're having a replication crisis on your side. It's very hard to replicate the results that are happening. And again, almost all of your papers are based on self-reported data. Again, I can see that if someone is going to affirm my delusions, I will report being happier. That does not mean anything. That is not a great basis.
There's a replication crisis throughout all science. And the reason why that there is a replication crisis is because these things are becoming more and more specialized. Because things become more and more specialized, it gets harder and harder to actually have other people replicate it. This, however, is not a problem, because as soon as something gets applied or that we find differences in papers, then effectively what happens is that it just gets re-examined. It's not anywhere close to what the standards for rigor and replication being re-examined are what you're implying. It just is not the case.
Okay, so First Amender, what about me? If you did a examination of my brain and I had no transness in my brain, I had the least trans brain you could ever imagine, just purely male, but I decided that I was going to be a woman, would you affirm my trans identity?
Yes, I would, and I would have you go see a psychologist to rule you out.
No. I don't want to see a psychologist. I'm just telling you that it is that.
Okay,
that I'm
then
trans,
I would affirm your identity.
Then you would? Okay, so then it's all about how I feel. Then it doesn't matter about what my brain says.
Exactly. First Amender, he doesn't realize how much he's wasting his time. Imagine putting all this work to sound smart, read all these studies, only to just not have any solid arguments.
So say those are drag queens.
you have to understand that what you're talking about effectively
So those
is
people aren't trans. Amy.
What you're talking about is effectively an impossibility. I don't think you understand just what requirement is necessitated in becoming trans. You think that it's as easy as
it doesn't matter. First Amender, it doesn't matter what's required to become trans. I could just put on a wig and a dress and just say I'm a woman, and you'd be like, okay. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much work.
Flicking a switch. No, I'm just saying it's not as easy as simply flicking a switch. You can't just sit there and say that you're that.
What's the process then? What's the process until you become trans?
I mean, typically what people do when they become trans, they usually exhibit themselves outwardly as well as inwardly. There's behavioral changes. There's
what if they don't
what if they don't?
Yeah,
okay,
exactly. What if they don't?
Then I suppose then they would probably be quite happy and wouldn't possess gender dysphoria in any way.
But what if they do?
Then they would make changes about their body.
What if they don't?
What if they don't? Though?
I just gave you the answers.
No, you didn't.
Now we're just reversing everything.
They think
this is so ridiculous.
You just told us we don't.
Go ahead. Provide your studies.
They think they're
provide your studies.
They're trans.
Prove me wrong.
We don't need any. We don't need any studies because we're
correct. The right never needs any studies. They never provide any evidence ever, no matter what.
No, we do. It's just this is like a common sense issue. This is pretty. Women can't become men, men can't become women. You could do surgeries and treatments to try to look as much as one as possible, but at the end of the day, it's not going to make you one. Now, listen, again, if 10 years ago, if you wanted to say, well, listen, just let them get their surgeries and just let them live their life or something like that, that would be one thing. However, you've lowered the bar so much to where it's like, well, anyone could just put on a wig and a dress, say they're trans, and they could get into women's spaces. That's the harm in this. That's the whole issue in this. And by the way, too, even if we didn't like even with the whole trans and hormonal treatment, never has there been a treatment where you lean into it. Okay. So for instance, if someone is suffering from body dysphoria, where they think they're fat, but they're really skinny, you never tell them, oh, yes, you are fat. Yeah, you need to lose some weight. You would never tell them that to affirm that. If someone is a schizophrenic and thinks the toaster is talking to them, you would never say, oh, yes, you know what? You're right. The toaster is talking to you. And then start teaching people how sometimes toasters can talk to people. You would never do that. You would never do that in any of these situations. If someone felt like their right arm wasn't really their right arm, that it was some kind of foreign entity on them, you would never affirm them and say, oh, yeah, that is not your arm. You're correct in that. You know what? And then start teaching people, you know what? Sometimes arms cannot be yours. Like you would never, ever teach people that. You would see what's going on up there. You would look at this trans brain and try to seek treatment to where this person no longer thinks they're the opposite gender. That's what you do with schizophrenia. That's what you do when you have when you think of a limb isn't yours. That's what you do in all these other scenarios. But for some reason, with the trans thing, for some weird reason, that's the only thing where the treatment is you just got to let them live as a woman. And not only that, but if you just say that you're a woman, oh, that's good enough. That's good enough.
Bring in stupid, silly arguments like call me Lord, everybody.
But his argument about the right never brings things. Oh, yeah, like the left. The left always believes in the correct things. It's so crazy how the left just always seems to know the correct things. And so then, like, for instance, the left will freak out and say, oh, my gosh, millions of black people are every year are dying at the hands of police officers, right? And then you show them the actual evidence. The right wingers show them the actual evidence that no, it's not in the millions. Sometimes it's not even in the hundreds. Sometimes it's like less than 100 a year. Yeah, sometimes it could be more than 100, but it's not in the thousands, not even close, not in the millions, not even the thousands. And yet they freak out and be like, well, no, but still. But the left, 1stAmender is like the stereotypical NPC leftist who just believes whatever the mainstream tells them, even though he tells us, oh, yeah, we just believe whatever the right wing says. But in reality, he's the brainwashed one who just believes whatever the mainstream and the left says. And he thinks he's like morally superior, just like all these other freaking lefties.
Your cat is dead.
Is he going to spur the whole time, James?
All right. Once again, my name's Ryan. I should change it.
You should change your name.
So there's one argument that 1stAmender. This is toward the end here. that 1stAmender bring up. So that's why I said is like, this is like a level up here a little bit where he's like, okay, but I have a rebuttal to that as well. Let me see if I could find it. I remember it was like toward the end.
To that as well. It was in essence saying Trump has declared there's
scanned. Could they not change through time? How would the brains have looked if we flooded them with testosterone instead of estrogen? Appeal to authority fallacy.
Co-founding variables were considered, but it does require actually reading the paper to go through it. But yes, those factors were considered. And secondly, an appeal to authority is regarding a if it's just an authority that is not relevant to the field of study. In order to say have a logical argument regarding, say, neurobiology, but you're not, it's not a joke for them.
It's my preference. It's not a joke for me.
I will update your name there, Jake, on the screen to reflect what our live chatter would prefer there and what you've asked for yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I do think that when you say that, you might be arguing for yes, maybe a little bit there.
No, I'm arguing for logical consistency is what I'm arguing for.
All right. Well, I've got that updated for you there. We want to have fun as well at modern day debate, but we do want to, like I say, take these questions seriously as well. There are serious issues surrounding, some of these topics for sure. But we also want to be human as well and try to have fun, not get caught up on certain things. Let's just carry on. Chief Dylan, you see that on screen right now. Is it logically possible to identify as multiple genders throughout one's life? If so, what is the threshold to be able to tell if it is genuine or disingenuous? Yeah, did you want to start?
Sure, I could respond to that.
Sure thing.
I think that it could be very complicated to really talk about multiple genders. You could say maybe I feel more towards one or more towards the other. I know that, there are people that view themselves as non-binary or somewhere in between.
I'm going to try to find it.
Cases among adolescents. It's just a social transition. It's actually not necessary to go on hormone blockers because the situation is not that serious. But the minority of cases do exist. And so that's mostly the area of contention that people have. But the medical institutions agree.
Yeah, so once again, this all just comes back to preferences, though, because all of those things aside, it just matters what somebody says they are. And if somebody says that they are a man or a woman, then that's the only thing that really matters. So unfortunately, you can use all the sophistry you'd like and all the medical jargon and papers you'd like.
Is PTSD sophistry, Jake?
Your argument always falls
back. How do you figure out someone has PTSD, Jake?
You always,
you ask them, Jake.
Yep. So
that's what you do, but we don't not affirm someone's PTSD. They get a psychological diagnosis, and you ask them how they feel. That doesn't make it invalid.
I can see.
Yeah, so he brings up the whole, because Jake's argument is like, well, it all depends on how they feel. You're just asking them how they feel. And he's like, well, how do you know about PTSD? You ask them, Jake. You have to ask people how they're feeling. Yeah. The thing is, though, if I just say I have PTSD, I could just be lying. I could just be lying for clout because I know it gets me attention. I could make up a whole lie that I'm like, oh, yes, I'm a veteran and I have PTSD because I don't know, I did battle somewhere. Or you know what? I don't even have to be a veteran. I could just be just someone and I say I have PTSD. People could lie about that. Do you affirm them? Do you just take everyone's word for it and say, oh, okay, you have PTSD? No, that's actual medical diagnosis. And like I brought up earlier, you don't affirm the person with PTSD. You don't so for instance, right? If I go and seek treatment and let's say I have PTSD and I go and seek treatment and I tell them, yeah, whenever I hear loud bang noises, I get the sweats and I get really nervous and I get scared and I jump behind the couch because to me, it brings me back to, when I fought in the war and because of bombs or something like that, the grenades, you wouldn't tell that person, you wouldn't affirm that person and be like, okay, your treatment is we're going to tell them that those are grenades and those are bombs, and we are going to tell them that they are back in the war. You don't treat someone like that. You would try to seek treatment where they wouldn't think that. Just like we do with everything. We try to treat them to where they don't think this way. Okay? But for some reason, with trans people, the treatment for some reason is to not try to get them to think that they're actually the correct gender, try to get some psychological evaluation or some kind of medicinal treatment. I don't know, but some kind of alternative treatment. No, instead, our treatment is, yes, you are a woman because you feel like you're a woman. You have the trans brain, and you know what? You are a woman. And everybody else in the whole freaking planet now has to treat you like a woman. And if they don't, well, you know what? You're going to commit suicide. Like, no one, we've never used that as a treatment for anything. But for some reason with trans people, that's the solution. We have to allow them to mutilate their bodies to try to resemble a woman as much as possible, get on these hormonal treatments, these testosterone treatments, or what have you, estrogen treatments, what have you, these lifelong treatments, because the thing is that you never become the opposite gender. You just get as close as possible to looking like one. And so you're putting your own body through this whole thing, and it's not right. And the medical industry is profiting off of it. If you really wanted to treat trans people, you would treat what's going on up here so they wouldn't be trans anymore. That's how you help these people. You don't lean into it. And you especially don't demand the whole world change for these people either. You don't demand everybody to affirm them, because that's risky. Not everyone's going to affirm them. So your solution, even if your solution is, well, we should shame those people that don't affirm them. Oh, okay. So you're going to shame these people for not affirming trans people, and you're going to make them feel bad. You're going to make them lose their jobs. You're going to make them feel guilty. You're going to make them a pariah for these people here, instead of just solving the dilemma with these people here. It doesn't make any sense. So that's what I would say for 1stAmender and his PTSD argument, is that we wouldn't affirm it. We wouldn't tell him, oh, yes, those loud noises are grenades, and you should definitely duck behind the couch every time you hear it, or you're justified in getting your sweats. No, you would try to treat it. Okay. And also, too, you wouldn't just take someone's word for it. I mean, I guess you would at first. Like, if you didn't know the person, they said they have PTSD or something. I guess you would take their word for it. But if you hung out with them more and you didn't really see any signs of it or anything, after a while, it'd be like, does this person really have PTSD? Or are they just making it up? But with 1stAmender, he would just believe it at all times. It doesn't matter. But what do you guys think about this? The whole debate is on Modern Day Debates. It also is on Jake Rattlesnake's channel. It's also on 1stAmender's channel, but it's on Modern Day Debates. I'm going to leave a link in the description below. Let me know what you guys thought about it. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Give this video a like if you liked it. If you really liked it, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys later. Take care.